paint off of the brush. And also, instead of it being a really flat surface when you're done, like if you worked on an illustration board, it has a different sort of texture that artists have found that they like. And then it's a good habit to clean your brush out between each color. That way none of this darker value will interfere with something I put in the brush later. It might work fine the first couple passes, but then as you work the brush back and forth, the paint starts to get into this other mixture and it's not quite as, not where you wanted it. Add a little more white to this gray. So with achromatic or black and white, you can only go two directions. You either make it lighter or you make it darker. And so that's easy. That's the easy thing about the first painting we did. Now this is too light for this value that's over here. I've added too much white to it. But this is about the right value for this gray area, this light area over in here. So I'm just going to take advantage of my mistake and go ahead and paint that in. Some people will paint a whole area in, thinking later they'll paint over it and they'll fix something. I'd like for you guys to try to paint the right area at the right time and not have to go back over it. Like for example, like a blue sky background. Some artists might paint the whole blue sky and then later come back in and paint trees over the top. But I really think a lot like a mechanical digital printer. Just try to put the right color in the right spot. And that works out best for me, and so I'm going to try to encourage you guys to do the same thing. Now there are hard value changes between these planes that are meeting at 90-degree angles, but this isn't a 90-degree angle change. This is just light and shadow. So there's going to be a soft value change from here to there, just slightly darker in this area. So I'll clean that out. Try not to slap you guys too much. So I'm just adding a little bit of black to this, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And this is where your digital studies will come in handy, because you'll start to see how one value change does make a remarkable difference in the surface. It really does look like there's something changing. So as I go to put this on, you'll hopefully see it's darker than the original or the earlier one. And it just gives the effect that light's hitting that area, but it's not actually changing planes. You can move across an earlier painted area if you want it to blend together a little bit. If it's still wet, it will blend. But I'm really not, I don't care that you guys have perfect blending right now. Just go ahead and, almost like it's cut paper, you're just putting it down in the right spot, or paint by number. Just put it down. And you can see that these brights and flats have a straight edge, and so you can really make a thin line that goes right up to an object. The rounds aren't quite that sharp, and they'll make a kind of looser, sloppier edge. So you get the feeling there's some light hitting in here, not as much light hitting there, so it's working okay. Alright, so I originally mixed up too light of a value for here, so I'm going to mix a little more black into this gray and keep making it darker. So now we're having some feeling that this side's lighter than that side, this side's lighter than there, so that's working. And then the top is the lightest area. And I kind of look up there, and I think actually I've got that too light. Bring just a little bit more. Black into it. Peek that area over. And you want to watch that you don't have the same values touching, so you want them to separate from each other and not merge. So I would want to be careful that this value back here is not the same value as the top, because then they would run together and you wouldn't have the contrast that separates them. Now, I've got all this dark, you think, hey, well, go ahead and do some of your dark shadows now. But really, these are the only neutral elements. Everything else has blue in it, and this doesn't have any blue in it. So a shadow on a light blue box is light blue plus black. A shadow on a blue tabletop is the blue of the table plus black. So, you just always have to mix up this first color first and then make it lighter or darker. It starts to get too washed out if you are always adding color to your grays. So start with the color first. Okay, so I'm going to be working on my blues now, and I've got pure blue, or pretty close to pure blue here, a light blue, and a lighter blue. So I'll go from my darkest blues, and then I'll go to my lighter blues. And even though this really is, I went to the store and I got the blue to match this. I got the swatches so that it would match that. It's not the exact same. And one thing you don't have to worry about is it doesn't have to be the exact same color. The pigments in these paints aren't the exact same pigments that are in the store-bought paints that I have. And what I told the morning class is, don't worry, no one else is going to see the still life. So when you're critical with your work and say it doesn't look exactly like a still life, don't worry about that. If it looks like a painting, and if it looks three-dimensional, then you're successful. But if it slightly is off, don't worry about it. Now, this blue and yellow are translucent. And do you see how much you see through it? So sometimes people add just a little bit of white to their blue to make it more opaque. And you'll find that as I add white to it to get in this lighter area, it's going to have a different quality to it. It's going to seem slightly thicker or pastier. All right, so where are we on time? Somebody tell me what time it is. What time is it? 11:20? So we've been at it for 20 minutes. And what I have to gauge here is I have to make it lighter than it was before, but not so light that it ends up being the same as the light